Hello and welcome to the App Collective Mastermind. This week, Nick had an uptick with his tipping app. I fall foul of app review, and we both discuss how best to get feedback from beta testers.
So how are you? How was everything this past week?
It was all right. Yes, I don't know. Kind of some frustrations. I just feeling a bit going uphill with a few things, but overall, kind of now feeling okay. So
Great.
Yeah, that's it. How about you?
I feel perpetually out of time right now.
Right.
I've had a good week, but it's been more effective at 7 and 7 based things than my own personal tasks by necessity. So I've actually done a lot of really interesting app things that we could discuss, but not a lot of great things from my own personal mastermind based fulfillment.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's crack through them and see where we get. So we got App Collective. First project for you is build an iPhone game.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
All right, so this is my big one, obviously, and it's definitely going to be the one I ramp up the most the second 7 and 7 is complete, and I don't have to basically split my development time, 90% to that. So build a game, and my tasks for this past week were create what I'm calling a workflow mockups or visual user stories, and then kind of like the companion goal to that was defining the revenue model to kind of go along with that. So so we can see how is it going to play for the user, and then how is in-game currency and real-world currency going to come into play in terms of monetizing it in the experience. And I definitely have thought about it since we last chatted, but I have not had the aforementioned time to really flesh anything out. So I didn't really put any updates in Trello on those two, because it was more just like when you have, you sit down and you have like a 30-minute think about what you want to do, but then you don't actually fire up Sketch for 2 hours.
Sure.
So I'm basically just going to leave those tasks in my to-do list as is, and hopefully, since I've had to think about it over the past week, actually execute them more over the next week. But I don't really have anything firm to bring up, nothing since the last call that I'm like, aha, I've had this amazing idea, just kind of letting it muddle in the noggin.
Sure. So do you feel like the 7 and 7 work is kind of more under control, or the back of it broken now? Or do you think is it likely you'll be at this point again kind of next week, or what do you think?
I definitely crossed a major hump last night at about 2 a.m. my time.
Okay.
So it was mostly that there were a few very essential pieces of functionality I had to build, because for those who don't know, it's 10 days till the end of September. 7 and 7 starts the first week of October. So I had a very finite amount of time to get this in the App Store, basically. And one of the things I needed to do was I had to add API versioning, because I built the API a little quick last year and took a few shortcuts, and one of them was versioning. So if I didn't want all of last year's data to blend into this year's data, I needed to do that. And then I added some really cool things I might want to talk about later about mapping. But I kind of put the pin in all that. So over the next few days, I'm not actually doing rampant coding anymore. I am mostly just going to use the app and make sure I didn't introduce any bugs,
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So I will say, to answer your question more directly, over the next week, I should have more mental bandwidth for coding, since I won't be in such a coding frenzy. My time will still be short as it has been, but I should be able to dedicate at least a couple quality hours to moving my designs forward and everything.
Cool. Okay. That is excellent. So yeah, because it would be good to do, even if it's just opening Sketch and moving something around, the momentum is really good to keep the momentum going. So
no, exactly. Because another person might have been pause our mastermind entirely until after 7 and 7, but I know that's not effective because then the day 7 and 7 ends, I'm going to have no momentum whatsoever. Whereas by you
Sure.
and me doing this, I will have that momentum and hopefully then be able to like kind of catch back up to the flow you are at.
Sure. Okay. Excellent. Well, and it's
So,
good that to have been thinking about it as well. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Okay.
actually, I mean, in an interesting way, reopening the 7 and 7 app does give me some kind of tangential help on all of my other tasks because it reminds me of how interacting, with a custom API and a user base that's going to be using it in real life, and like over the next few weeks, I'm going to get a lot of real world feedback, and so all of that stuff is going to directly inform the other work you and I are both doing. So it's kind of nice. Like I do, even though it's not on the projects we're doing in the mastermind, it is good like information, especially since iOS 11 just dropped. I'm not doing anything in the 7 and 7 app that's custom to iOS 11, but it's going to be out there on people's phones. And so like that will also help. Like if there's anything that shows up that's unusual.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. And if you want a beta tester, just put me in the
I was
test line.
already going to add you.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I promise starting next week, most of my updates will get more exciting other than sorry, I did 7 and 7 things instead of that. But I need to sleep.
Yeah. No, of course. And we'll have to decide actually on the week of 7 and 7 what we're gonna
What to do.
what we're gonna what we're gonna do that week. So we can have a think nearer the time.
We'll have a think on it. Exactly. All right.
Okay.
Let's pivot.
Cool.
Let's pivot to your first task because there's not really much feedback on mine for that other than like we'll do the things. So your first big target was you are working to get 5,000 subscribers in progress, and you've been making good progress on that. So what's been up for this past week?
Yeah, so last week I had my server was compromised, and so part of the tasks was the first thing was to build a new server. And yeah, saying it out loud now, maybe I should have just, I don't know. Yeah, it's been a useful learning experience to do this stuff. And so we talked last week about Cloudflare, and so I got all that set up. That kind of, it didn't cause me, it's unfair to say it caused me problems, but my lack of experience of having yet another layer there basically added some confusion. And so building the new server or getting everything fully working took a bit longer than I anticipated. But on the other hand, I do feel like it's working a lot better now than it was before.
That's great.
So so Cloudflare is amazing. It was just I am not, and so I kind of recommend that for sure. And yeah, that's all good, looking good now for that. And then the other things were to add the A/B tests. So you remember I had those 3 versions of the screen, and I've made like a working version for one screen, and so I've added in the A/B tests for that now. But and so that's all good. One thing on that screen, which I'm going to have to do at some point, which is kind of different from a lot of the UI, is because it's this kind of not shortcut. It is a shortcut I've taken of just using a background photo on there. That really looks bad on the iPhone 10.
Does it?
Well, I don't know. I haven't really tried to do anything with it, but because the phone is a lot taller, that kind of, and all the other phones have like the same aspect ratio, so it's a different aspect ratio. So I haven't really thought about what I'm going to do with that yet, other than that.
Does that mean if you're coding an image asset in Xcode for iOS 11 going forward, does that mean you now have 1x, 2x, 3x, and iPhone 10? Like a fourth
it's still the
asset?
same. It's still the same 3 ratios.
It is, okay.
But the reason that it's difficult is because the image is taking up the whole screen, and kind of that's part of the design. So if the image was taking up, if it was just a square image or even just a rectangular image, but it was an element, it's kind of basically this is kind of designed for paper almost, for like a fixed ratio,
Right.
and really the screen needs to be designed for web. And pretty much all of my other screens are designed with that in mind. So there is work to do, but this specific screen is like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Fair.
It's not like, I'm not sure how many of my users are going to have this phone anyway, but I will have to do something for it. So,
well, I wonder if just like just starting out, you could just take the existing 3x asset and just like pad the background color. Not the one, I guess that's an image, but yeah, like if you just had like a border or like a little, black or white on it, like you could even letterbox it,
Yeah, well, that will probably be the first thing I try. Will be something like that, or maybe it just sticks to the top. And then, there's something underneath. So like the blue version, which isn't a photo, I think that will look totally fine.
I think that'll look fine. It's just the one where the image is the entire height, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see a lot of apps use those kind of, like you see on the web, where you've got that kind of video that's kind of playing in the background. So I guess a lot of apps will struggle with this. Maybe
well, it's just like, do you remember when the iPads first came out? I mean, trillion years ago, and you didn't have iPad versions of apps yet. And so they showed up on the iPad with the tiny, tiny little iPhone version of it in the center of the iPad, and it looked ridiculous.
Yep. Progress still does that on the iPad.
Woo!
And you know what else?
Honestly, I think some of mine do that too, but instead of being tiny, they just stretch to a ridiculous level so that there's just like a half an iPad's amount of white space.
Yeah, it's all good fun. So that is a task that I'll need to do as part of the overall making progress work for the iPhone 10.
That's fair. But also, at least you should caveat, you don't really need to worry about that for about 6 to 7 weeks, because you can't even get an iPhone 10 until the first week of November. So,
and from what I've read, it's going to be like 10 people who have one on launch day as well. So,
wow,
yeah,
just because production quality, or
apparently they haven't started making them yet. And
oh shit,
who knows? This stuff is all rumors, but it will obviously be more than 10 people. But it's going to be pretty constrained.
There's going to be like one progress user who's like, "This looks awful. What the hell, Lewis?"
Yeah, well, yeah, probably. So, the progress users generally aren't stereotypically people who are going to be buying these kind of devices, but I obviously still want to support them. A laptop-priced
phone on launch day.
Yeah, exactly. But there you go. And then one of the other tasks for that was, there was a few other tasks. So there was make a landing page for the measurements guide.
Right.
So I've done all that, and I've put that as in progress. I was working on it this afternoon, and I've changed some stuff, and now I've kind of broken some other stuff. So like I've got 2 MailChimp groups, so I know whether people have signed up in the app or whether they've signed up in the website.
Smart.
But it turns out that you can't have MailChimp you can't trigger the kind of drip email thing from 2 groups. I'm going to have to do like a custom API call to say start this thing. So
we should talk about that after, because I've had to do some really crazy shit with MailChimp groups as well, and automation-based triggers. So, you're probably right.
Yeah, well, it would be interesting to talk about it, but that I think is what I have to do, is like an automation trigger. Because you can only have one trigger, you can have one trigger, but I want it to go to 2 groups.
So what you can do is, off the top of my head, there are like just the automation triggers that they have recently made for free. It's not a paid feature anymore. And that will let you do exactly what you just said, but you can also create like a campaign if you needed to. That could be a trigger. I can always ask Kit too, because she is the one always doing these campaigns, and I'm usually just debugging them if something goes wrong.
It would be interesting to check my log. I think it's not going to be difficult. It's just that I was doing it, and then right at the last minute, I've realized I've got a bit more to do. I think the campaign trigger is right, and I think it's going to be easy to do. It's just that I haven't actually done it yet.
Totally fair. But good progress. Good progress on progress.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty pleased. And then Jen has been working on the actual kind of thing that's going to get sent out today.
Excellent.
And so that is looking good. And she is going to do the emails that go out, like the drip emails.
That's wonderful. Well, also that's a good breakdown of time, right? Because then you can be focusing on the app and features and our tasks and stuff, and you're not worried about writing all this meta content.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm just thinking about what I'm going to do next week for that. So I've still got this campaign trigger thing to do. There's a little bit there.
Right.
I don't actually know. I mean, the next thing will be actually releasing this version. It's basically everything else being. It's going to be helping Jen get everything else ready, and then releasing it. So let's.
Did you want to have a task? Anything related to trying to market the web side of it? Because like obviously releasing the updated version of Progress makes sense, for the in-app CTA that you've created, but you also have the web version. So we could think about doing like a Facebook ad campaign or something else like that.
I kind of, because Jen is doing a lot of stuff on Pinterest for this. So Jen is actually doing pretty well at generating traffic to the website with Pinterest stuff at the moment.
Excellent.
And so I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I kind of think that I want to just leave that for now. So what would be good would be ready to, so the app, have the app, so the app ready to launch. So
that makes sense.
App ready to launch. So even if the surrounding stuff isn't ready, then having the app in a stable position so I can launch it next week.
At least if it's a thing like that where, one stressor off of your plate. Like if it's ready to go, when the other things line up, you can just hit the button basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kind of a random question on that fact. When, say you have test flight and you're testing out an app, right? And you push a new build, like a new build of Progress, and you get it on your phone, whatever else. If you then go to actually push that version live in the App Store, does it go through another review process or is it kind of abbreviated?
It definitely is reviewed again. I don't know. Right. I don't know. But you start the 2 days. You get the 2 days.
Again.
From my perspective, it's as if if it hasn't been through the beta review.
Okay, because that would have been a nice perk, right? Like you go through that stupid extra review beforehand, and then when you actually want to launch it, it's quicker.
It might be quicker because sometimes it does feel quicker than other times. And like my most recent ones, I didn't actually push out the build that I'd had on test flight because you always find some last minute thing.
Of course you do. Yeah.
So I'm not sure is the honest answer, but
fair.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't assume that it does.
Gotcha. Fair enough. All right. So next week, task ready, progress for release, but not actually releasing, right?
Yeah, that's it. So I need to word the task better. So that is the goal, not the task. But yeah, I need, which is what I said before. But yeah, so I need to come and write the task. But that is the target is to be ready to go. So it would just be make a list and finish that shit off, basically.
Fair enough.
Yes, excellent. Okay.
All right.
And how about you? So do you want to talk through the other ones or?
My next one, at least, I've done a little bit more on because it's not coding based. So my next target was basically just to reach 10 US in profit a day on the App Store. And my last week's tasks were to basically get the pages for my main apps all updated to take advantage of all the iOS 11 changes. And then also some tweaks to my search ad campaigns based on the early results from a couple weeks ago. And I definitely changed the search ads a little bit. I didn't do the kind of like massive deep dive I was going to do, but I kind of went in and poked a few buttons here and there. And Cora hasn't changed almost at all, but I actually noticed a huge uptick in Piper over the past 3 or 4 days. And so I have no idea if it's accidental, unrelated, or what. So I kind of
an uptick in the ads or just in general or?
An uptick in revenue on it.
Okay.
Like actual in-app purchases.
So, an uptick in downloads as well, or
See, that's the other thing. Since more or less you and I started this mastermind round, my app downloads have gone up like a shockingly large amount, and
yeah,
without much, like I think I mentioned a week or two ago, like without the corresponding proportional shift in revenue. Like if you went from say
mm,
100 downloads to 500, you would expect a similar increase in your in-app purchases, and
yeah,
that wasn't the case. And so I don't honestly have almost any idea what's actually going on, because all of a sudden, where sometimes my apps would be, I don't remember the hard numbers, but like if it was before more like 80 to 200 on like a weekly basis or a daily basis, it's now like 4 or 500.
hmm. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
I've Yeah, I don't know whether that is related to other apps being culled or changes in
Yeah.
the search. Because I've got an app called which I kind of did basically as an MVP, which is like for I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like for pregnancy. The idea is to make a pregnancy
Right.
time lapse. So you do like a photo every day, and then you can get like like a little
Right.
time lapse video of your
Oh, that's
pregnancy.
clever.
And that was getting like 1 or 2 downloads a day, and it's gone up to about 60 a day over the last
Whoa.
I don't know when that started, a little while ago. And so
Right.
it's kind of at the back of my mind that I should actually do something, just kind of give that an update and give it a bit of love and see whether there's something in that
Exactly.
now. But
Exactly.
it's not really a focus at the moment. But anyway, so the point is to say that I've seen similar things, and that's like
Okay.
literally I've done nothing like with that app
Right.
for
Well, see, that was
um,
the other thing. I just went in there and I was doing what I would have assumed is like that's when you're like tidying a living room. You're not actually changing anything of
mm,
substance. And so it probably was unrelated to my actions, but it also meant I was like, whoa, maybe. So I think over the weekend, I'm going to kind of maybe drill into it a little bit and be like, okay, is anything different from the last time I looked in on you? Where I can see refers, like, are you referring from a new source? Because
yeah.
maybe just like when Google shifts a search algorithm, maybe Apple shifted a search algorithm. Like you said,
Well, I
maybe
mean,
a purged app.
if it's this week, the obvious candidate is the new App Store. Like iOS
It
11
is.
is out on Tuesday or was out on Tuesday. Um,
Well, what's interesting is the download spike started before this week, but the revenue spike
mm,
did not. So what I'll be interested
mm,
in is if this holds, like if a week from now when we're talking, if I am noticing the same higher level of revenue, I mean, I guess like I'll
yeah.
clap a little bit, obviously, but try to figure out what the hell it is and like bolster it.
And did you change the thing? So there was a few things we talked about. So like the title, putting
Right.
like something at the beginning of the title, like tipping, making that the first word in the search.
I did do that
And
back when you first gave me that idea. I did it with Takora right away, and we talked about it on like 2 or 3 pods ago. And then a week after that, I did it with Piper. So now it's like travel tipping with Piper and, time and task management with Takora. And what I had found is for Takora, I need to tweak it a little bit more to differentiate the time versus the task management, because I think the time management aspect of it, since it is basically a Pomodoro timer, is the more effective search results, whereas the task management stuff I think is where I'm getting the drop off. And
right,
like basically like I went in, started to do some of the iOS 11 stuff, like a title tweak and then a subtitle tweak and things like that, and I just didn't get through all of it because like I needed new binaries. And with my new MacBook, I had to go back into the dev center and like regenerate all my certificates. So I like had to, over the past like 3 weeks, I've invalidated all my app certificates and like regenerated them all. And, that whole fun process.
and did you release the ratings thing? I wonder whether the ratings thing is
Did,
to do with
did
it,
I?
because I see you
I'm not
have
sure.
six. It says on iTunes on the web, it says you have 60
Yeah.
ratings, but it's
For
not showing
Piper?
any reviews for Piper. Yeah, so that would
That is,
be for
huh.
UK. No, that's for US. So it's
US. That's
um,
really interesting. I'm not sure. I'm really not. I wonder, if Apple purges a review, does it leave the star rating?
oh well, this is a whole thing that has been a
Yeah. You and
frustration
I have
this
had,
week.
I remember talks in the past about purged reviews. Um, At some point, we're going to have to side talk, by the way. Like, I have completely stopped using that smooth review service we talked about in season 1 of the pod.
Right.
The things that had pissed you off about it kind of initially have totally pissed me off. And I was like, you know what? I'm just like going to wash my hands of it. I can do better.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know. It's interesting. Yeah. So I think it would be interesting. I always find that trying to work out what's caused these things, I've mostly never been able to work it out, but it's always still interesting to go in and try.
I've only been able to do it once, and it was because Kit had a travel blog for years, and she built an ad for Piper right at the top that looks like a general banner ad, but it's actually like a fixed banner ad for Piper. And the second she did that, there was a measured, sustainable increase in downloads and revenue for the life of her blog. And I mean, it's been stagnant more or less since we started 7 and 7, and we kind of pivoted from like a heavy travel adventure lifestyle to a more, location independent living in city lifestyle. And besides that though, like that was the only one where it was like image goes up, downloads go up, site goes down, downloads go down, because we could see the traffic on her site. And I think with I did Facebook integration, and so like you could see it go all the way through the pipeline somehow. It was interesting.
And the other thing I was going to ask quickly, I think, was, did you release the change we talked about taking France or whatever it was, changing what was free and what wasn't free on there?
I didn't do this yet because I couldn't decide what to switch them to yet. So we should probably look through my list of countries and figure it out, because you're right. Like, I had originally been like, I'll include France and Spain as really high quality ones. But then you were rightfully pointing out, those are the big ones people are going to want.
Yeah, I would choose ones that basically get rid of any from the top 10 and then choose ones with funny names.
Or like names Vanuatu.
Like honestly, that, because it just feels fun and friendly. It's really stupid, but
it's super fun. It's super fun. You know what I should do, actually, because the reason those countries are free is because they were the ones I started with, and then every other country falls in a paid package. So what I need to do is actually add new countries. And that would be actually super useful, because there are countries I've missed. Like, I have a Southeast Asia package and I don't have Hong Kong in it, because Hong Kong is different than China and everything else. Whereas like that's one I could add for free. And like a few other places like that, where like maybe there was a country like in between like Western Europe and Eastern Europe, or almost to the Middle East, like what's Turkey, like it can kind of fall under a few different balances. And those are the ones I could throw in for free, the ones with the silliest of names. And then I can kind of benefit both ways. Like, I'm not taking a country out of a paid package, but I'm also kind of, I don't know what I mean, like, I guess it's easy. Like Italy and Spain and France would all just lump into the Western Europe package. So be easy.
I don't know. I wouldn't overthink it. I would just get rid of those premium countries from free and put in just almost anything else, and then just whatever's the shortest route to that.
I have it in my I have it in one of my to-do lists. That's basically my first Piper coding task. Like, besides like, changing the App Store page and messing around with the search ad campaigns, the next like actual code update I submit, which I'll do to tweak the subtitle and all that other stuff for iOS 11, I'll definitely do that. And then we'll see how things turn out. Hopefully well.
Yeah. Cool. I'm excited to hear what happens with that one. I'd be really interested to know whether
I feel like that's
or not.
I agree. I feel like it's one of the best things. Since we have a couple of apps with a couple of different focuses, it's nice to look at all of them in aggregate and be like, oh, when we make these kind of common changes between our apps, but if they have different effects, we can like really eliminate like high and low points and hopefully replicate, the good stuff for future apps.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, let's move on to your next one, which is your tip jar.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of got a bit stuck on this kind of behind other stuff. So I kind of keep. So I'd done last week. I'd made the feature which I was going to put behind the tip jar, and then I kind of decided I can't put it behind the tip jar, and then I wanted to release that in time for iOS 11, and I made a new video, and then the video was rejected by Apple, and which was
Whoa.
fun. And so I had to make another video, and so I kind of just lost a bunch of time.
Is this the video that plays the app preview video?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't realize that's subject to review, but of course it should be.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it seems like the rules have changed a little bit. So,
Hmm.
um,
What
so
happened?
so basically, it's super annoying. But so one of the things that I had in the video was that it showed the home screen, and you kind of force touch the icon,
Ah,
and you get the pop up, the little kind of widget comes up from the icon. And
right,
that was actually what the app was featured for before, like not the video, but
right,
for having 3D touch from the icon.
right,
Um,
right.
so it's been kind of in multiple Apple features with that in the video and everything. And then this time I refreshed the video a little bit just because I've got a new UI, but the
Right,
concept of the video was the same. It just looks more iOS 11y. And they
right.
said, no, you can't have the home screen. You can't have the home screen in the video. Um, and so
Huh. How are you
that
supposed
was,
to demonstrate 3D touch if you can't have the home screen?
well, this is what I asked them. So, and it's just been frustrating. So I replied to app review and said, I did this before. It was, look, this has been fine before, and not just with app
Right,
review, but with editorial and everybody. And they
right.
just keep sending me a copy and paste of a line from a document
Ugh,
which says you can't show the home screen, and a screenshot of the home screen. So I took it to app review,
Jesus.
and then um, app review just want it off their queue. So, or like, there's the appeal thing. And
Right.
so the first appeal, so after what I did for the first time was I replied to app review, and then I sent an appeal. And app review replied within like an hour saying, oh, it looks like you were still talking to app review. So once that's finished, you can chat to us
Oh,
then.
jeez.
And then I got these, just they basically said the same thing again, app review did. So I sent it to appeal again, and they say they'll respond within 24 hours. And the second time, after 24 hours, like after 23 and a half hours, they responded and said, okay, we'll look at this now. And then
Oh,
as kind of
Jesus.
iOS 11 was looming, I was like, well, I don't want to not do this, especially because there's like a small bug in the widget.
Right.
And so I can't wait for this. I've got to just change the video so that the widget works when everybody's on iOS 11.
Right.
And so I made a new video and submitted that, and that got approved. And then after that happened, app review came back and said, "Oh, it looks like your app has
Oh,
been approved now,
Jesus.
so we assume everything is fine." So
Uh,
I've replied to that mail saying, "Can you clarify what's going on here?" But I don't. Everybody's got their little box, so like app review
right.
can only tell you things that are actually in review. They can't speculate on the future, and appeal can only
Of course
speculate on
not.
things which are rejected and are not. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. So I don't know whether I'm just going to give up and just leave the video. But the extra kind of
Right.
salt in the wound is, apart from the fact that I've done this before, I noticed that iMovie, the preview video for iMovie, also
Right.
shows force touch on the home screen. Um, and so
Mm.
I don't know, it's a punch in the face, but I don't
That's
know. I
so
don't know
hypocritical.
whether I would make a new video now or not, because it just takes so much time. And
Yeah,
like,
that's what I was going to ask because that was another thing that I honestly like inhibited me from really diving into iOS 11 pages was I wanted to copy you and make a
mm,
nice video for each one of my apps that, went through the navigation. But yeah, like how long does it take you like from start to finish, like to having it ready
um,
to upload?
I'd have to go and work it out. I mean, part of the thing that takes a long time with a time app is that when you record your device, it
Right?
does this nice thing for you where it changes the status bar and it changes it to Steve time of like 9:41.
Ah,
But which is really cool, and it changes the battery level and all that stuff. And that's really
right.
good unless you're making an app which shows world times and then shows like a completely different time. Um,
Yeah,
so so this
that's a
time I made
problem.
like a demo mode, and it just always shows the times at the right
Mm,
time. So that should make it
gotcha.
a bit quicker next time. But all in all, it's not. I don't know. I guess I spent like probably between the two videos. I probably spent between like a day and a half for
Okay,
two.
so
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 for
it's
like one and a
definitely
half videos.
Right. So it's definitely not just like, sit down with some coffee in the morning and by early evening you have a video. Like it's going to be at least two solid sit down sessions.
Yeah, it was for me. I guess it depends how much you're trying to do and everything else. So
Right.
I was trying to I wind up because you've got to get it to less than 30 seconds and stuff
Right.
like that. And so I was trying to speed up the clips and show. I've got my little story that I wanted to show, and then I was trying to
Right.
fit that all in. And so it's not days and days, but it's not trivial either.
Yeah.
So
See, I feel like if I do one, it's going to be like a pale imitation of what you would do. Like I'll start off on like my logo, fade to the home screen, and then like it'll just be like a QuickTime video that's recording the simulator of like go up to country, change country, pick new country, scroll down, do a tip calculation. Video
yeah,
over,
the thing that gets stuck with it, or not get stuck with it, but that I find is when a lot of like the animations and stuff like that, or like when you watch your recording back of what you've done, you realize
Right.
how much kind of dead air time there is, as it were. So,
Right.
and like a second or two, if you do 5 interactions and you've got 2 seconds dead on each
Right.
one, that means you've got like 10 seconds out of 30 seconds where nothing's happening, and you've got to kind of
Right.
cut that out or speed it up or whatever. And those are the bits for me that were the pain. And if you look at the good ones, you can see where that stuff has been really tightly done, and it does
That's
really
fair.
benefit from doing that. It's worth doing it well, but that's the bit that takes the time, I guess.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, and then I think it is worth it, but
Right.
um,
I can
be
see
aware
how
not to
something
show
like this.
your yeah. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of rules that they don't really publish. So like you're not allowed
Right.
to show any other apps. So I had this problem before where I
Right.
was showing the Today widget, but if I had some other apps widgets, and they're like, no, you can't show other apps, which is totally fair enough. But it's kind
Right.
of what's frustrating, apart from anything else, is they clearly have this list of rules that
Right.
they are checking against, but they don't publish that. And if they publish that, it would make it easier for developers
Absolutely.
to not waste hours of time, or potentially,
And yeah.
dollars getting someone else to do it or whatever.
No, definitely. And I can see how this would be a week killer. Like if you did this and you had to redo the damn video and all these stupid emails back and forth, like that is a lot
Well,
of emotional labor just shot out into
it
the
is,
void.
and then it's waiting for you do it, it gets reviewed, and then it rejects review, and that kind of loop.
Right.
So anyway, there we go. It's all good. It's out now. I'm happy with the new video.
Fair
Um,
enough.
and so it would be nice for Apple to give some kind of official comment on this, but I doubt that they will, and I doubt that even if they did, that I will remake the video now that I've spent the time making
Yeah.
a new one. So
Yeah, totally.
there we go. And so then in terms of the tip jar project, it's kind of I kind of feel like I've had a bit of a flip round on this, or I'm a bit kind of in limbo on this whole thing. So
Okay.
I still like so that's where to start on this. So I saw something on Twitter where someone was talking about basically roughly the same idea, but like a different way of doing it. So they were talking about how you do upgrades as part of um, with in-app doing upgrades as in-app purchases, and it was
Sure.
kind of similar
I've thought
to
about
what
that
I was.
before too.
Yeah, and I'd never really thought about it, or everything I read always says, "Oh, this is impossible to do it this way; it doesn't work." And they
Right.
kind of had a way where it could work, and I started thinking about, should I do that instead of my kind of model on the sketch way, because the model on the sketch way is good if you're doing regular updates, but it feels a bit
Right.
unfair when I'm doing more ad hoc, and I could do a lot of updates and then not do anything for a while, and like
Right.
giving
You mean
people.
the whole point is if in January I tip you $5, I might get no new features in 6 months. And if someone in June tips you $5, you might release 10 features in July, August, and September that I like their $5 went to more basically.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and the kind of 12 months was trying to kind of mitigate that or whatever, but it feels
Right.
better just to do like, I got a set of features, and then when I do new set of features, I charge for that.
Yep.
Um, that kind of makes more sense. And then I was talking this through with Jen, and she's like, well, so what features are you ever actually going to add? And kind of
Right.
when there is a kind of limit to the amount of features that am ever going to add to this app, and so
Sure.
I was thinking maybe actually it makes for this app, maybe it makes more sense to have my pot of kind of 5 features, or like 5 sets of features, and then those are all paid for separately. And and then that's it, and then there is no kind of ongoing thing, so it gives me the scope to charge for new stuff, and that but it also means that I am
so I guess what it sounds like is it's kind of still, in a way, it's still the tip jar, except that instead of tipping to get future features, you're just charging for the features like any like in like an app where the in-app purchases enable new functionality. And that seems fine, but you could leave the tip jar in there anyways if you wanted.
Yeah, well, that's true. So it would be good to have a tip jar or some method of tipping in there, and especially that is now what a lot of apps are doing. And so I think what's to think about is which I haven't really made a plan for, is like kind of thinking about this. So having the tip jar and the generic reusable tip jar, that is something that I still think is a good idea and something that I still want to do.
Agreed.
And so I guess I need to think about, do I focus on this more generic tip jar? So forget the whole kind of modeling sketch and everything else. It's just a tip jar. And then maybe there is things you get. The app knows that you've given a tip, and maybe there is nice things that you get if you've given a tip.
Right. Well, you know what you could do too? It just occurred to me, if I think about how Chrome extensions do this, a lot of times they'll do it like, when a Chrome extension updates, it can open a new tab. And sometimes it'll be like, hey, this is a volunteer project, toss a dollar in the PayPal jar if you enjoy using it. And it occurred to me that when you do this, like say you build an app, it doesn't have to necessarily be world time, but you have any app and you have the tip jar. But it could also be like, say you have a premium feature in world time that like, say it can like auto schedule like a Google Calendar meeting or something like that, right? Between 2 people. And it's still just part of the app. It's still free or paid, whatever person paid for world time. But say someone uses the feature, or say they use it like 2 or 3 times. You could always be like, hey, how you liking that Google Calendar integration? Pretty dope, right? If you love it and you have the means, how about a tip?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the functionality would still be there. Like all the work you've already done would still be used, but it's more just you change how you advertise. It's more like you don't charge for the pro feature, but if you notice someone is using the pro feature a lot, maybe you ask for a tip.
Yeah, maybe. I think I would it's something to think. I mean, this is the biggest problem with this, is that I don't really feel like I've got a clear idea of what the problem is, and I don't really have a clear idea of what the solution is.
You know what it seems like? What it seems like you need to do is much how like an artist would paint like 10 different treatments of a scene before settling on like the final one. It sounds like you almost need to build like 5 throwaway apps, like 5 apps where it's like they're all like a time widget or something. Like pick some concept, do them all slightly differently, have different tipping variants, and publish all of them with the idea that you don't care about them except as like a research project, and then maybe you can see how they would be engaged with. I realize that might be tough because then we're assuming all those things about audience that we've struggled so much with the collective and everything. But I'm having a hard time thinking about.
What would be good would be to A/B test the different ideas or something like that. So it's still the same app, but then one group of people get these get like a shop of features, and one people get just the tipping, and one people get. So maybe that's something to think about of how to do that. But the problem with that is it's things like if someone leaves a review and says and mentions it in the review. Mentions like it costs this much to unlock everything, and then someone else does. I don't know. I mean, it's so because I've sort of done that with Progress, right? So with Progress, I had the 2 versions. I had like the paid one and the free one, and then I wanted to make the paid one to be like the bodybuilder version, so like the muscle gain instead of weight loss. And now that's on subscription, and the other one is on in-app purchase. And I have people email me and say, so what is the difference between these 2? Like, what is going on here? And I just have to say to them, well, you should probably just not get the subscription one. And so, yeah, I don't know. It leaves it
Yeah.
in an awkward situation.
Yeah.
So, uh, in an ideal world, that is the best thing. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. So I
Huh.
think for
Yeah.
this, maybe my next thing then is, so I feel like because it's, then the other thing is, the two parts to it are is making something generic is a good idea, but then
Right.
also it can't be super generic. There has to be stuff that fits in, because no two apps are the
Right.
same in terms of the
Right. It
model.
has to fit the model of world time and how you want the
Yeah.
flow to be. Yeah.
So I think what I want to do is, so I think I do want to create the generic tip jar. So basically, go back to almost to the original thing.
Right.
So go just totally modeled on pcalc. So
Right.
you've got the tip jar, and you can tip multiple times, and that maybe unlocks some feature which I haven't yet decided. um,
Right.
and so it's kind of back to plan A with this, really. So I'm just going to create the skeleton tipping project, um,
Right.
and get, start moving on the technical side of that, and then I can do that in parallel with the idea of making like a shop kind of thing where I've
Right.
got different features that you can buy, and then I've got the tip
Right.
jar and the shop.
Well,
um,
because the other thing is too, like if you do this skeleton project and you get the code implemented, all the other things we're talking about are marketing differences, presentation differences. And it's more like
mm,
you can
they,
just change your mind.
yeah, they are so there's technical work to build 5 in-app purchases instead of one, and then what to
That's
do
very true. That's
with
very
like
true.
people who've already paid for some amount and stuff like that. So I'm kind of better I have more experience with that stuff now than I
Right.
learned a lot from doing the subscription
Oh, holy
stuff.
crap. Hold on. I
But
have it. Okay. Okay. Might be too much. I'm gonna don my tinfoil hat. So we have I'm gonna jump a tiny bit, unfortunately, but okay, we have your Nomad Tracker app. It's in its infancy. You could, what if you made 5 versions of it where you just change the name? So instead of Nomad Tracker, location independent tracker, entrepreneur tracker, remote worker tracker, and you can brand it slightly differently, and you could totally apply all the different tipping jar models to it because it's like the same
yeah,
app.
so there's two problems with that I see. One is that I don't if I had 5 apps, I don't know how many downloads one app is going to get, let alone
That's true.
5, and you need thousands of people for this stuff to be statistically
That's fair.
useful. But then the second problem is I know that Apple are really cracking down on these kind of cloned apps recently,
Fair.
and so that is against App Store policy.
That's
Or
fair.
I don't know the history really, but
Mhm.
I know for a fact that Apple are not cool with this stuff right now. So, and they have a
That's fair.
focus on this.
Actually,
So,
the way, okay, backtracking because that was just a tinfoil. A way to actually solve this is to have something that where multiple apps are fair. Like, I actually created Piper because I was sick of all the individual tipping apps per country. But
mm,
that individual way is a way to address this kind of problem. Like, say you built a generic white label thing for tipping advice for a country, for one country, and then you could release 30 apps and you could test out slightly different tipping models in all of them. And
yeah,
that's the kind of app style that would work
I mean, I think a few years ago that would have worked. I don't think now that you'd have to do it really.
really
Basically,
well.
it's in the guidelines. It says if you've got an app, it mentions soccer teams. So it says if you've got an
Mm.
app that's news about a soccer team, then you have to make an app for soccer, and you can't make an app for team A, an app for team B, an app for team C. And I've also
Oh,
seen apps for learning languages where they have a similar policy.
really? So there can't just be necessarily like learn Spanish flashcards.
No, and
It would have to
then
be
and
like
also
learn flashcards, enable Spanish.
yeah, and in the forums there was something even more, which I think was just bullshit. Basically, excuse my French, where if I'm where restaurants where there was like a software vendor, like a person making apps for different
Right,
restaurants, and
right,
then and so it's basically the same thing, but it's totally different restaurants. He's just going around and
right,
saying, "Oh, Mr. Curryhouse, do you want an app? Oh, Mr.
right.
Italian, do you want an app?" And then and then Apple have gone through and like culled all these apps and said, you should make one app for all these
What?
restaurants, and it just
No,
doesn't
that
it
doesn't.
exactly. And so And that's
No,
just really unfair.
that sucks too, because I would also, that is something that was an idea I had ages ago. I actually started making WordPress themes for restaurants a while back. And I was originally thinking like, would that be a good app idea? Because like, what if you have the ability to call the restaurant? What if you have an ability to do open table integration? Like,
exactly. It makes complete sense, and there's loads you could do. So I think it would be okay if you publish them under different companies, but if you publish them all under your account, I think you're going to struggle with that now.
Do you know what's funny though? I know a counterexample to this. There is a company called Level Up, and they are basically a white label app restaurant provider that has a rewards program built in. And in the Bethesda, Maryland area near where my and Kit's families live, all these local restaurants in one area use it. So like there's like a Greek place that uses it, and like a cupcake shop and a coffee shop, and like all these different places use it. And it's actually cool because it's like you open up the app and it fires up a QR code that's linked to your credit card.
I would check whether that is still there, and if it is,
it is. I have
they're
it all on my
probably
phone.
on borrowed time, because
that's annoying because I have a lot of rewards in these apps.
Or check, it might be that the app is still there, but it's not there on the store anymore.
Yeah, you're right. That could be it.
Apple won't just rip it off of your device.
But what's funny is it made sense though, because they worked with each restaurant to develop a unique feel. Each app feels unique and has custom rewards. It's like, it doesn't make any sense why you would deny that. It's a good product. I was so impressed by it. I was pissed I didn't come up with it, you know?
Yeah, well, and maybe they are somehow sufficiently different, but there's definitely example that you can go and developer forums and find people saying that that exact thing was pulled by.
Well, you and I also know there is a hella double standard where like I could build a game and it could be rejected for pick a reason, and Electronic Arts could make a game that does the same thing and not get blocked because they generate, $20 million a year for Apple.
Yeah, who knows? But either way, I kind of feel scared of that stuff at the moment because that's recent that this has been.
Okay, fair point. So we're going to bottle up all those thoughts about basically A/B testing with individual apps and just toss that right out the door.
I think so. So there's definitely interesting to think about what A/B testing you could do within a single app that would be transparent to users, and I think that is a good thing to do. But I think multiple apps, I think, is going to be is tricky.
That's fair.
So for next week, I'm going to create the outline of the skeleton of the tipping project and just basically back to square one, try and build something that I can reuse and that I can put into progress just as pure tipping, kind of a self-aware tip jar, so the app can say, is there a tip, and then unlock any features if it wants to.
It gives you at the very least a good basis for current apps, future apps, things like that. Like you at least have a piece of ammunition.
Exactly.
Nice.
So that is that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. All right. Well, we can pipe through just so you're not talking in endless streams on my third one. My third one was related to getting us more Patreon backers for our app collective. And last week went on like an epic thing on an entire new strategy that my partner Kit provided that, was mind explosions all over the place. And my task for last week was to try to produce a new series of tasks to take advantage of this strategy. And the big point of that would be tasks, especially when 7 and 7 is over, that I can start executing on to basically like rapidly increase both the number of developers and non-developers that kind of, enjoy being in our network and our universe, but for entirely different reasons. And I didn't really come up with a hard list. I thought about it just like loosely, but not like, I didn't like sit down with like a pen and paper and go, okay, like what are the first 5 things I want to do to take advantage of this? So like with some of my other ones, I'm kind of just going to leave that where it is. I will focus on it this next week, but probably last, like I'll focus on my other tasks first, because that one, it's more like I have at least 2 weeks before I'm going to want to like heavily engage on those tasks. So I feel like I don't have to rush that one.
I was been not thinking about this a lot, but like when I do when it pops into my mind, I still find it exciting. And so, but
me too.
Something that occurs to me is that I bought a course which is basically very much about, which would be super useful for this stuff, and so we could. But I don't know. It's interesting. I guess we have to decide whether we just put it off until after this mastermind or we
Right.
start it. But I think it would be super interesting for us both to do this course at the same time, and
Definitely.
then and do it for the two halves of that strategy, and
Right.
go through that together. I don't think we could do that
Oh, that
publicly
would be
because
cool.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
But like
well,
we could do that like if
we could sort of, but the,
yeah,
I haven't paid to publish the course, so
that's fair. That's fair.
but we can think about it. It's something to think about anyway.
No, I really like the idea of doing the same course with the two sides of this coin because we would both come out of it, and no, that would just be super fascinating.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool.
Well, let's think about it. It's certainly not. Yeah. So we'll put that on hold for now. Is there anything
Yeah.
else you were going to do in the meantime on that? Or
On that one, not really. I more just like I kind of wanted to, for Kit, it was a very easy thing to output that information. But for both me and you, that was like, a monumental amount of thought and divergence from what we normally do. So I still think I actually need to digest it a little bit more, like I really want to, it's really, like you said, it's really exciting because I can see us really being able to make very measurable success if we follow those general strategic outlines versus what I've been doing in the past, which is more like flailing with different features. So yeah, I'm not in any rush to like make any rash decisions. So yeah, just gonna let it marinate. Now I might like as I look through it, if I can think of like tasks that might make sense, maybe I'll create like to-dos or comments and we can kind of debate over the week, like, would it make sense to do X to maybe try to achieve this strategic goal? Something like that.
yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
Cool. I was just adding that thing about maybe doing the course as a to-do so we didn't forget about it.
Yeah. Good call.
Cool. All right. So this brings us to what I already talked about a little bit earlier, Nomad Tracker.
Yeah. So I kind of set myself the target of getting 100 beta testers, which I thought was
Cool.
kind of not going to happen, but it was made me think big about it instead of trying to get 10 and winding up getting one.
Right.
So I posted on a few places. I posted on the kind of biggest Nomad Facebook group that I am on, and I got it's kind of a mixed. Well, it's not a mixed response. I got a fairly good response. There was a few people saying, "How is this different to X?" which was really useful. And so I've got a couple of new apps to go and look at. I don't feel like I'm not worried about those one way or another. And then there was a few interesting ideas that came up as well. So like 2 people said, "Oh, we'd be interested in partnering with you or just discussing this with you." So that came. That was really useful. And in terms of people who actually signed up, sorry, I'm just signing into iTunes. It's
And it was great. I thought there was like a great set of comments, both on your personal Facebook and in the Digital Nomad group.
Yeah, I got more than I was expecting. But the only bit that's been disappointing, is it this one? There's some weird people on Facebook. I don't even like. There's this one person I've seen well, I say she is clearly a fake person, and she's commented twice with just random stuff. And so the most recent comment is, "I'm a slut," and it's like,
well, that just sounds like spam.
Yeah, I actually thinking about it, looking at this compared to the other one, I think it's probably her boyfriend or somebody close to her who is on her
do you
account.
think it's like a hate? It's like a hate thing.
That's think so, worse. It's completely off topic for this, but it's just that there's weird stuff. So anyway, and the thread now has had 37 comments. It's pretty good.
That's insane.
And 30 plus likes or whatever the equivalent was. So I'm kind of fairly pleased with that. But then the kind of what is not so or more depressing is that kind of with it's a bit of it's not even difficult. Just the test flight thing, I think, requires
Right.
more concentration than a lot of people have, and possibly,
Yeah.
and
Well,
so
because you got to
getting
click an
people,
email and then you got to install test flight. And then some people are dumb enough to not even regularly buy apps. So they have to like sign in and then they have to click the link in the email and install it.
yeah. So that exactly. So there's a bit more friction there than is ideal. And so, although I've had a lot of people who've said they're interested, like
Right.
I've got, so in total testers that I've got now, some of whom aren't from Facebook is 1, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, is like 11 or 12, which I'm pretty happy with.
That's still pretty good.
That's not nothing. But then I've got 29 in total. So I've got well over
Right.
half who haven't, who haven't installed it. But I don't blame them or anything. It's just
Right.
kind of, I don't know, it's irksome, I guess, is the
Yeah.
thing. And so one of my tasks for this week should be to follow up with the people on Facebook Messenger
Right. Well,
who
especially
haven't,
like, if we can take advantage of this in any way at 7 and 7, like you said, either if it's, at our workshop or in the conference itself, or just like you selling yourself, like we
yeah,
can make like a little app collective sticker and we can be like, hey, you want to see a cool visualization at Christmas of where you've been traveling? Because
yeah. Well,
like,
what I might do
our,
is I might try and have a meetup for it.
oh, you should. That'd be great.
Yeah, can I do those yet? Can I arrange or schedule whatever meetups yet?
Super soon. So I
Super
finished
soon.
up the
Okay.
app last night. So it's to test flight people right now. So I'll add you to test flight after this call, and then if I don't find any major bugs, I'll just publish this build and then work on anything else. So something's out there, and then yeah, like it's naked right now. Like I have to put in the data for this year, like the schedule, but you'll be able to
Right.
make meetups, and brand new this year, you'll be able to select a map location.
Sweet. Okay. So I can put that as a task for this week is to
Yeah, you
arrange a
can.
7. Cool.
And
So
then
yes,
simultaneously, you'll be beta testing the new meetup feature for me.
yeah, absolutely. There's
Nice.
a genuine uh, user acceptance testing
That's
using it
excellent.
exactly what it's for.
Right? Perfect.
Um,
But yeah,
so
no, that would be great because like even like just like me as a user, I'm in Barcelona now, but I'm gonna be in Valencia and then London and then New York and then DC and then all of those other places. So like even my data over the next 6 months will give you a lot of fun data points.
yeah, exactly. Well, it'll give you a lot of fun data points. Um,
Exactly. It'll give me a lot of fun data points that I can share with you.
yeah, exactly. So
If you
so
add
that
one of
is.
those things, like may I have your anonymized data?
Yeah, well, I really don't want to do it at the moment. I think that whatever I do, I will probably. So I've kind of done this basically database design,
Right.
which is like location data. So like just points in time where you are in the world, and then
Right.
above that, it's like I forget what the word is, but normalized to city level, and then
Right.
normalized to country level. And I don't
Right.
think I would ever send to a server anything other than the city and the country. I don't think I
That's
would
true.
ever send
But
the.
like, it could be something really
Um,
simple. Like say you had made a little testy visualization for yourself, right? Where like you add a
yeah,
button to the app to export the data like you do in
yeah, that's
Tagger.
true.
And then so I could
Yeah,
just give you my data or upload it to your website so we could see how our different visualizations play.
yeah, no, that's true, and that exactly, and that's what I want it for, is so anyone can, that when the visualization type stuff is there, that
Yeah,
people will already have cool stuff. Um,
exactly.
so that's two things, and
Nice.
then I think another thing that I want to do is, so I was thinking what would be really good is to build up on some of the kind of community side of this, and so at the moment I've got like a placeholder settings tab, um,
Right.
but I think I'm going to change that to be feedback, and so I've got a few ideas for
That's good.
feedback. So one thing I've done is made like, I haven't put it anywhere yet, but I've made like a public Trello board and enabled
Ooh.
voting. So what would be nice would be to put something into the app so that people can go and come and vote for features, and that gives me a nice steer on.
Can you do like a
Um,
web view? so that it would look roughly like it's in the app?
Yeah, I think that's what I'd either do that or just jump it right out. Probably I'll play
Right.
around. I haven't really, well, I will do whatever's quickest for what it
Yep.
is. I might
Yep.
try and make it in the app. So that was one thing. So things that I want to do, not necessarily will do this week, is one is that. One is like I've done these surveys in other apps that have gone really well, like my kind of 3-question surveys. So I'd like
Right.
to put that in, make one of those surveys, and then link to that and put it in there. And then a third thing is just add some kind of contact me functionality, so that people can just
That
get in
makes
touch
sense.
with more ad
Yeah.
hoc.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if you want, I can show you how I've integrated chat into all of my apps, where it's like it can bring up like a dedicated chat window, so someone can just ask you a message, and then it can like pipe to Slack or an email, and you can reply back in kind. And it's as long as your API doesn't exceed like 50,000 queries in a month or something like that, it's free to use.
I might do that. I'll have to have a think. So what I was
Yeah,
planning to use was, because there's so many things for this anyway, and so there was
totally.
one which is more like a. Well, I tell you what would be interesting to see for that would be
Yeah.
so it would be to see like what that looks like behind the scenes. That's not what
Yep.
So I had another one in mind, which is more like help desk email type focus, but it
Right.
has a lot of nice
Right.
features. I wish I could remember what it's called off the top of my head. It's something like helpfully, or it's got some kind of name like
Fair
that.
enough. Fair enough.
Um, but it doesn't do the chat type thing. Um,
Right.
and so
No, the thing
yeah,
I use, it's really cool because honestly, it's in your code. It's fucking I cussed, whatever. Sorry. It's zero setup. It's like you basically initialize it with an app ID in your delegate, and then
yeah,
wherever you set up like a button, like a chat button or something, you just call like launch, and that's it.
mm,
Takes care of everything.
yeah. Cool.
So
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I wonder whether to do that versus the email thing. I'll have a think. But
Yeah.
so I think for this week,
But
my
definitely
the goals.
some kind of feedback functionality is kind of the crux of it
Yeah,
though this week. Yeah.
exactly. So I think the Trello and the survey, because the survey
Well,
actually gets me
yeah.
most of the contact anyway, because people
I
would.
need to. I'm kind of abusing our public Trello for these things because I now definitely want to do public feedback in a Trello board, and I want to
Mm,
use surveys to garner feedback because it's such a good idea.
yeah, the survey one thing has worked really well for me, and this kind of 3-question where you more or less ask the same thing in 3 different
Right,
ways.
right. Are
Um,
you going to give the little $10 gift card?
I don't know. That is a good question. I'll probably not to start with,
Right,
because I kind of figure people who are on a beta. I don't know. Maybe I will. I hadn't honestly. I hadn't thought about it, and I had thought that I wouldn't
right.
do it. But maybe I will. Um,
It's fair.
yeah, yeah. Not. It's a good question. Yeah. I don't know. I'll think
We,
about it.
huh. Yeah, I
Like
just realized, like, on a slight tangent, the concept of the survey plus the gambling element we've talked about before. Like, say this might only work for a game, but say I have a game, it has the in-app currency, and I want to get the survey, like you're talking about. I pop up the 3-question survey, and I say, "Hey, answer this survey." Afterwards, you can press the button, and maybe you'll win a ton of in-game currency. Because you can't get away with
mm,
enabling in-app purchase features and things like that. Like I'm sure Apple will reject the crap out of it. But if it was like, do my type form, and then press the button and maybe you'll get 10 coins, maybe you'll get 1,000 coins.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really nice idea, and you could think about. Yeah, it would just be nailing the wording, but the concept of that
Yeah.
is really cool.
Because then you're not giving away physical money like out of your pocket, but you are adding like functionality to the user. Like you're giving them an incentive to do it still.
Yeah, that's true. I could maybe do that with with the remove. Yeah, yeah, it's better with the game currency
It
because you
is
can
better with
definitely
a
give them
game.
something. Whereas if I just give them an IAP, I'm either giving them it or not giving them it, and then
Exactly.
that isn't really
And
fair, or
are
they'll
you
be
like
pissed off if
allowed
they
to do
don't.
that? I was never sure about this. Like because I know
Mm,
you can't force a review for functionality. But like, if you were like, hey, fill out this survey and we'll enable the in-app purchase for free, like, is that something you can actually do?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I bet that you could do it and that they would never find it.
Right.
But I would have
But is
to
it like against the spirit of the law, kind of?
I don't know. I don't think so. You're not
Right.
taking money
You're
in some
taking
other
your
way.
own money, yes. Like,
Yeah.
you're
I think for
sacrificing your
feedback,
priority. Yeah.
I think for feedback it would be okay. So for
Yeah.
reviews, no, and for
Yeah. Well, I remember there was a
yeah,
thing where there was some app I backed. There was some app I backed, and they had a Kickstarter. And the whole point was like there was like a text field at the bottom, and you could type in a secret code. And they gave the
mm,
Kickstarter backers a secret code to type in that enabled a whole ton of secret functionality. But then in the future, that got rejected because they were like, you can't have like secret functionality that's enabled like that.
mm,
And so
interesting.
I wondered if typing completing a survey to get an in-app type feature kind of falls under that same mechanism of,
I guess
like, yeah.
I assume that the difference is that people paid for the Kickstarter thing,
Ah,
so money exchanged. So you
you're
definitely
right.
can't
You're
take
right.
money. But
I
if
think
it
you're
was
right. That must
just
have been it. It must have been that it wasn't, yeah. Yeah, it had
yeah,
nothing to do with the secret code itself, but it had to do with what got you the secret code.
right, yeah. So
Right. Okay.
I I would assume that the survey would be okay, but
Okay.
who flipping knows?
Who knows?
With
You won't know till they reject it.
yeah, exactly. Um, yeah,
Nice.
all right. So that is good. I feel pretty. Oh, and so I'd also put make community. So I think I'm going to leave that one off.
Yeah, adding a community might be a lot if you're doing the feedback tab and like the Trello integration. That's already like two big chunky things since you're really going to have to think about how you want to do the like
Yeah.
feedback integration.
So actually looking at this, so I have actually this when I've said make community, I've misworded it. So I've actually have put some of these things on here. So making a
Mm.
Facebook group would be the only extra thing.
Mm.
And so I could create a Facebook group and add a link to it
You
in the app.
could. Can't hurt.
Yeah, that will be what I will do. I'm clucking because I don't want to include the Facebook library, and I'm trying to think.
Wait, why? Big?
Because for this I'm gonna try and have like a no third parties stuff
Ooh,
thing because I kind of want it to be. I want to make anonymity like
right,
a big part of it, and I feel like it can be a distinct feature, even though a
right,
lot of people don't care. It can be like a marketing point to say, you know, that your location is never sent to
right.
anyone,
Right. And like
even though
if you
they.
integrate Facebook, there's the smallest chance that somehow it integrates with its data points and like you can't promise
Oh,
that it won't be lost.
it is. You could 100% guarantee that Facebook will use it to track your location if you install Facebook anywhere,
Right.
any of those libraries. Facebook are that you're making a
Right.
request and they pick up the IP address and they go, oh, the IP address is in Leamington,
Right.
and they kind of know to you know, I don't know how close, but they get pretty close.
Yeah, but you mean it's kind of like how all of a sudden on like Instagram, my ads will change to the language of the country I'm in. Like I'm in Spanish ads right
Yeah,
now, and when I'm in London later in the year, it'll switch to British ads and stuff like that.
yeah, exactly. And so it's
Yeah.
not like most people are cool with it, and I'm kind of cool with it. But I feel like for a location tracking app, it feels like a selling point to be able to say,
Yes.
I've got nothing. But I think I should be able to have still just do the links where I open the Facebook group. It's just a
Right.
URL. I don't actually need the plugin,
No,
or
you're right.
the
URL
SDK.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done this in other places, so
Nice.
should be fine. And so I will add a Facebook group and just add a link to that. That's a really quick
Cool.
piece of work. So FB group. Yeah.
Facebook group.
Yeah. So that is all good. And so that is the kind of goal for next week is to publish a new beta, which has just ways
Okay.
of letting people get the feedback.
No, that's great.
And meanwhile, kind of chase up the people who haven't,
Right.
who've expressed interest but haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, so hopefully a week from now, you have more people with the app installed, and those who have installed the app are engaging a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Very fair goals. All right. Seems good overall.
Yeah, it certainly does. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think we're in a good position,
I think so.
ready to catch up again next week.
Perfect. All right, let's break.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you did, then please give us a like or a subscribe below and let us know what you think in the comments. And we'll see you next week.